There we go. All right, first item on the agenda, we just called the meeting to order at 12:05. Second item is to receive comments from the public. Any public comments? There are none, we're moving on. Item number 3 is to consider and act on requests for adjustments to or relief from specific charges imposed by the district. Consent agenda consists of 3 items: review and act on the minutes, review and act on the financial reports that were provided, and to receive the tax collector's report, including any write-offs. Anyone need to pull any of those items or just accept them as they are? And if so, we'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second to accept the minutes, the consent agenda as approved. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, regular agenda item number 7, consider and act on approving attendance and expenses for the district and or Woodlands Water Trustee business. I think that's just a normal thing we have to do and no changes to that.
No action.
No action on that. Item number 8, review and act on the district's draft fiscal year 2023-2024 operating budget and recommend water and sewer rates, sewer rate structure. So we got a couple of additions there, and Eric, you gonna take that?
Yes, last month I presented the proposed draft budget. It looked like this and a memo. This month we have the final memo version and then the proposed final budget for your consideration. From last month to this month, there actually wasn't any appreciable changes. There was one change, about $7,000 we added to engineering for lead and copper evaluation that we're gonna have to do next year. And that was on the tan area in 5300.03. It used to say 19,000, now it's 26,000 and change. That was the main difference in the budget.
Any questions, discussion? I just have one quick question regarding the memo under the revenue and expense explanation. It says the preliminary district's forecast for 2024 indicates a revenue of 2.4 million, expense of 2.3. And then the next line, it says that we are estimating a 9% increase in total revenues and a 10% increase in expenses compared to 2023 budget. Do we still feel comfortable with that slim margin in terms of expenses, given all the increases that we've gone through in the last couple of years, just in cost in general?
Yes, you're in good shape.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, you're one of the best. And if you look down, as I mentioned, we talked a little bit about it last month, that green, at the very bottom on page 2 of the budget. That's kind of what we look at as an indicator. And we have districts at 3. And we'd like for everybody to be at 9 or 12.
We're at 15, 18.
You're in good shape. So trying to encourage the districts to not take as big a cuts. There might be areas where you can cut, but don't cut too much because we have a lot of infrastructure renewal Woodlands wide to do over the next foreseeable future.
And even with the expenses that we had on the Donwick, those inlets that we had to replace, something like that, if that were to pop up next year, 15, 20,000, we should be okay with that as well.
Absolutely. Very healthy right now.
All right, that's healthy is a good thing. Any other comments or questions? All right, so we'll entertain a motion to accept the district's fiscal year 2023-2024 operating budget as presented.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to accept the budget as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Item number 9, conduct a public hearing regarding the district's intent to levy a 2023 tax rate, which I know we talked about that last meeting. We had set that publication rate. And I think now we need to.
That's correct. So just to recap, tax rate said a 2-step process. You completed the first step last month, authorizing the publication of the distance 13 in the Conroe Courier. You did confirm that was published as required by law. Now that step has been completed, we now move on to step number 2, which is to first conduct a public hearing on the proposed tax rate and then to consider action to adopt the order formally levying tax for 2023. So you'll see there in the notice, last year's rate or 2022's rate of 0.2925. This year's proposed rate of 0.26. That is an 11.11% decrease in the tax rate and a 0.76% decrease in that's to adjourn our public meeting and open the public hearing regarding the adoption of the district's tax rate. Do you have any comments from the public on the? Done?
Do it again.
Stop public hearing.
All right, so we opened the public hearing and closed the public hearing at 12:11. There's no minute, no comments, so we're moving on to item number 10.
Correct, and that is to consider that levy of the district's 2023 tax rate. And that tax rate is 0.26. It is comprised of 0.1925 for debt service and 0.0675 for maintenance and operations. Motion to adopt the tax rate.
Remember motion to adopt. Second.
So a motion and a second on the floor to adopt the proposed tax rate at 0.26%. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Gentlemen. So item number 11 is to approve and execute execution of an amended district information form, which I know we did this once and we have to do it again. Is that what you're saying? So,
Yeah, we did it last month to update the form to comply with the new statutory language for those purchasers. Now we need to adopt another amendment to district information form to reflect your 2023 tax rate that you just adopted. All the other information stays the same. It's making its way. I mean, three directors, any three directors can sign the district information form.
so I guess if you're signing it, we need to get the motion to approve it. And then we'll get the motion done and then we'll complete the signature. But can we entertain a motion to approve the amended district information form?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the.
I'm sorry. A motion and a second on the floor to approve the form as drafted and presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, that's coming around. If you're doing that. And we got that.
675.
Item number 12, receive the regular monthly SJRA Woodlands Division report, including updates on operations, projects, and public outreach.
To start with number 12, though, Dan does have something he bought with the month. So real quick, on item 12, over the recent months, a lot of discussion on AC water lines program and path forward for that. I did want to remind you that we also are currently engaged in planning for the long-term wastewater program. So there will be some additional information coming out soon on that. We have a scheduled October 24th at 5 p.m. meeting, all bud meeting to provide update on where we're at the strategic planning for the new wastewater facility, looking at our master plan layout, and updating cost estimates. So 5 p.m. October 24th at SBRA's Woodlands office. But encourage y'all to attend that.
I'll be there.
I think that's all we got for right now.
That's it, but your whole report.
That I.
We'll have to. All right, so we're moving.
That's item 13.
Item number 13, here we go. Consider and act on additional research by San Antonio River Authority on the AC water line. Now we'll get some action done.
All right, so at the trustees meeting on last Wednesday, Ed Shuckford covered a lot of good details on the AEC water lines, path forward discussions we've had, so on and so forth. Those are on page 32. I'm not going to go through all the details. Basically, I'm going to hit a high level highlight. Excuse me. And then if y'all have questions, we can go from there. Long story short, though, there's been one general recommendation that's been thrown out there, which is to replace the AC water. From that one recommendation, there's been a lot of conversation about the data that's needed to support that recommendation. What we have presented last Wednesday is to put a pause on future construction, future design of AC water line replacement, and move forward with AC water line condition-based testing. So right now, we've thrown out the estimate of $3.5 million in 4 years. That is an estimate, very high level at this point. We took a straw poll general consensus of the trustees, and we're looking to do so at each of the MUDs as well. See if you are in favor of, stopping construction, stopping or pausing construction and design, and moving forward with condition-based testing. Condition-based testing is destructive testing and non-destructive at this point. If all the MUDs are in general consensus, yes, move forward with condition-based testing. Then Dan and his group will look to put a RFQ on the street to start soliciting for an engineer to come in, an expert in the AC water line replacement, to come in and help guide us to actually determine how to do the testing, what testing needs to be done, and essentially how you get your best bang. That's the short story of it, but we could definitely be more talkative if you'd like.
So I wasn't at the trustee meeting, but Sean stepped in before I was. And so Sean, you have anything to add to the conversation?
I do. So, basically, the thought about that is, there's been a lot of studies around the country of AC water lines and understanding what the lifespan is of these lines, and wanting to remain at a very high quality of lifestyle for this area. That's what essentially built the Woodlands, and that's what you used to have lots of people coming here. And over the research, we found that, we'd like to go, or, it was a pretty large consensus across the trustees board to find that, spending a couple $1 million, $3.5 million. I think they said as low as one, and they said they probably can't do one. So somewhere around $3.5 million to do testing every couple of miles along the routes of the proposed replacement of the pipes, to go ahead and take out pipes in strategic areas like Urban's Town Center and a few other areas that were already needing to do updates. So rather than proactively dig, it's more reactively dig in some of those areas to help save costs that you're already going to do anyways, in the areas that we weren't going to necessarily reactively dig, proactively find key areas to dig up whole sections of pipe. I believe they're 8 or 10 feet long. So from coupling to coupling, essentially pull out the whole thing, do the destructive and non-destructive testing. And there's, I believe, a few different types of the destructive testing. I think that's one of the sample pieces. And they talked about doing non-destructive, where there's essentially like a probe that goes through the pipe and kind of sets off a signal, that tests, hey, is there a variability in the pipe throughout a certain amount of distance? And so across the board, most people thought on the trustees meeting that, hey, it's better to spend a couple million than 200 or 300 million, just because we think that's what we should do, because the community is roughly 50 years old. I believe Ed was the one. It was Ed. He had mentioned, hey, we can go ahead and start with Town Center. We can, by the time we're looking for a new GM, by the time we get a new engineer in place, it's going to take about a year to, or about 6 months or so to get all that in place sometime at the beginning of the year. And now you're at about a year of doing research and building out that study. So at that point, everyone thought, well, hey, we'll just wait. We'd be half the time to wait to do it right, to be cost effective. And so they asked, and I was the first one to be asked. So having talked to a few people, I thought this is something that the board would entertain, and then certainly want to see what y'all's thoughts are.
It sounds like, from the trustee meeting, everybody was kind of on board with this new theory, and I'm thought about that.
There were, except for,
Don't mention anything.
except for two individuals. I don't even know their names. I just know what they look like, but, so the majority was, very much in favor.
I remember when we had a presentation, either last meeting or then before last, I think there was trust meeting. There was some, I think projects already kind of on the slate, town center and trade center, that were gonna be, have pipes replaced anyway. And I think when the discussion initially started about transitioning from the old thought process to the new thought process, we were gonna still do those projects. Is that still the case or not the case?
That was the thought process at that presentation time. So Trade Center is a project by itself. So we're still going forward with Town Center, actually, I think it's on the street. We have that out for proposal there.
On trade center.
Trade Center is right there. That's already funded and already paid for. It's a relatively small job. Yeah.
I apologize, I got pretty down kind of mixed up.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I just wanted.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
But that's not an AC renewal. That's a new water
New
line.
construction.
Right.
Right. That's tying into see somebody.
Correct.
Oh, so without, right.
That's why we listed it as an opportunity. Right. But town center construction or design is 95% complete. Construction would be put on hold. Till we do the testing of town center to see does it need to be placed in 25 or could it be pushed to 3-5 years? Just make sure the money's spent.
And when we collectively meet Williams Water, does any of this cost, how is the cost of that shared amongst the, months themselves?
It's in the water rates.
Okay, so all your portion.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thoughts? So all you need from us was a consensus?
General consensus, later on in the future, once we get the RFQ and some more estimated costs together, we'll be coming back for a potential budget amendment at that.
And so it sounds like I'm, consensus is this, how that's gonna do.
I get one thing to add for your information, we did provide Eric and posted on my Google Drive a number of documents, dozens of articles, AWWA articles, Water Research Foundation articles. We received, I think, about 35 questions from various mod directors. So there's a PDF on there with all those questions listed and our responses. There's some maps, exhibits, tables, you lost the information on them. Probably you desire, but we want to make sure you're aware that we made that all available. And the last thing that keeps the fight in front of you said that is from a recent AC water line break, I think it was 16-inch. So that is just here kind of as a visualization of what that pipe looks like and seeing the layers in it. Just for those who may have not seen.
And what story did this tell?
Around
Not unusual deterioration of pipe, but the ground movement itself.
correct. And so one thing, just quickly while you're looking at it, whenever we dig up the pipe, we look on the outside, the brown part and say, okay, that's good. Is there divots? Do you have any holes? Any leaching? Is it still there? As well as on the inside. Because that little layer is what protects all the fibers and everything inside. So if you start giving divots and cracks or erosion in there, then it just kind of shoots straight through them. So that was strictly a circular crack around the entire thing, which basically means you had a piece of pipe that went like that and couldn't bend, so it just cracked.
Something else to add, kind of our commitment to opportunistic testing. We had a 10-foot section approximately of that pipe that was removed. And we have that in proper storage right now until we get that consultant on board to help us determine what testing. For any other breaks moving forward, that place plan to collect that.
And where did this come from again?
Timber Wild and South Millman.
Yeah.
I literally studied all night. I couldn't do that for nothing after that. So it's just right over here, don't be on South Millman.
What do we normally do with the pipe, in like past years, whenever it comes out of the ground and it's broken?
We'd store it on site for a little bit, just in case we need to do some testing, if there's a question or something about it, and we dispose over the contractor to dispose of it, generally every 6 to 9 weeks.
How do they dispose of stuff like that?
There's a lab that you can take this in.
So now is it gonna be better if they hold on to it for a while longer than once it's a test, or once it's out and you test it initially, it's a done deal?
That's a very good question for the. I always ask it. Yeah.
Well, you know, you never know what you're gonna need to test, so maybe there is a rhyme or reason to keep some of it just in storage somewhere, so.
How much CSI pipes?
Agree entirely, because if we would have kept it 1 year, we would have,
Yeah.
repository, so, okay, well, that's our question.
Pretty good. All right, anything else? Good. All right, thank you, guys, appreciate it. All right, moving on to item 14, receive the attorney's report.
Right, no journal items to discuss today.
Good report.
Yeah.
15, manager's report.
All right. I just have a few things as well. Just wanted to report that, Jim's last day was last Thursday, so he's, no longer here. We will have, planning a reception for him probably in the next month or so. It'll be after hours, kind of a type of reception. So still have a chance to say goodbyes, still well wishes. So, that's coming down the pipe. I wanted to point out in your packet, there's a number of articles, and you probably read even more in the news about drought, area-wide municipalities going into stricter drought contingency situation. Happy to report that the Woodlands has not had to do that, and we don't expect to do that with the rain coming and in last week and the weather, the temperatures coming down a little bit. It looks like we're gonna be in good shape, and we'll avoid it this summer. So it's good news. You also start seeing a little bit of seeing other municipalities report their water and sewer rate adoptions as you are going through that same process as well. I think we'll do that next month, finalize that piece of it. We continue to get quite a bit of customer thank yous continually on a handful of folks, and so always going to share those with you. I always think of it as, you know, it takes a lot for someone to go to the next step and say thank you to someone, you know, especially a customer that doesn't even know which email to use, and they have to search that information. So it's a big deal to us. So sure that. Mhm. And finally, I just wanted to pass it over to John to give a quick update on the public outreach.
Yes, I have time. All right, page 27, starting the communications report for the month. This month, I wanted to bring forward a bit more information about what we're hearing from the community. Not surprisingly, most of it has to do with the drought. It's fair to say. Sarah just touched on utilities throughout the region are enacting more restrictions, and we often get lumped in with those other providers. What's used about rate structures and policies and where those boundaries start and end. So that's one of our main tasks right now, is clarifying that we are your provider and this is what we are doing. This is our responsibility. So getting more information out there, spelling this information, taking up a lot of our finger. Another thing we're finding is folks really struggle sometimes to connect consumption to problems. If their bills are sky high, they really don't understand why. They've been so accustomed to cheap water bills for so long. And so we see a lot of that. There must be a leak. The rates must have gone up. What's happening? Give them tools to connect with their water use and understand that our consumption needs higher bills. One of those main tools is Water Smart. We are always pounding that. Please, as you talk to folks out there about their bills, about their water use, give them one thing, give them Water Smart. It's online customer portal. It's free. It's very easy to use. They do need their customer number to log on. Call us. We give it to them right away. Get them. Great tool. And they get link alerts too.
When you say customer number, is that the account number?
Yeah, they can.
It's on their bill, they can just.
It's on their water bill. Some folks don't have that at hand. Just give us a call. Give us not that. Get involved with it. And yeah, it's a great tool for the legal aspect as well. If you haven't played around with it yourself, I encourage you to be on it. There's a lot more to it as well. Great tool. We're getting a lot of questions about the congregation schedule. That's been continually in place since 2013. Not a drought-related program. But we're finding a lot of the community still isn't understanding what the congregation schedule is, or they feel like they don't need to follow it. Their neighbor's not following it. Why isn't the commercial center not following it? A lot of issues around the congregation schedule. So putting a lot of effort into those communications as well.
That's-
All right, on what page there, 28, website,
Mhm.
still performing well. August was our second highest month ever. Visitation, give you a nice little breakdown there, kind of high level breakdown really on where folks are going within the website. Are seeing that they're making more use of the educational resources that are there. Try to make it easier for them to do that with some of their navigation, some of the restructuring on their navigation. So it seems to be taking effect. I think I mentioned last month, we had a contest amongst our readers to rename the e-blast. It's our irrigation recommendation and newsletter. So we've got almost 100 submissions on names, some really creative ones for sure. And the top vote getter was Woodlands Water Weekly. That's our new name brand there. That was a good, fun customer engagement tool. You'll see there in our e-blast some of the sample posts there, and on the following page in our digital and print marketing that we are segueing into the fourth quarter with a focus on value of the water system. We'll continue to see that focus, that primary focus over the next few months. And then finally, page 30, stats on water smart. Right now on the residential side, we got 34% of our accounts are registered for water smart. 10% of all of our accounts are actively using it by that. They've been on, engaged with it over the last 90 days. So that's great. It was 10%, but lots of room to grow there. We are seeing steady growth in registration and use. We want to grow that. In commercial, we need more stuff for us. It's 19% of concert. Putting more effort into that. The process of securing and then now working with Holloway and SGRA on the infrastructure for communications program. That's moving forward. So Holloway is the firm that was secured. Eric and SGRA staff will meet with Holloway for the first time next week. And then start forming the plan. So we'll be hearing more and more about that process. Finally, your in-person outreach events calendar is there at the bottom. We encourage you to attend any of those. Come see us at the booth, hang out a little bit, talk with customers. That's a great way to give information and gain information. Customers. And, hope to be adding to this as we go along. Any questions?
On the website presentation, on page 28, where you said the August 2023, August 2023, you had 13,413 unique users.
Yes.
And on the top of the bar chart shows that in 2023, there was 31,753. Can you just help me understand?
Sorry, two different statistics here. Yeah, thank you. So page views. So that's just a marker of visitation. So you may get on and go to 4 different pages session. That's 4 page views, 1 unique visitation. Now, unique users, that's so if you get on 10 times a month, you're only 1 unique user. That's 13,000 different individuals got on. Right, in August. I think so. I think so. So, yeah, really tracking those trends and how they form over time. Every month this year, full month through August, top 12 of all times. Doing really well.
I was wondering, at any of these events, can you get a conflict bench?
We do not sell those, but the township does. And they get a great deal on them.
Okay.
And,
I went to our assessment, they're not my 7-year-old ones. those. My wife just.
They're
So
awesome. Do
I
it.
was gonna find one of those.
I recommend going to, you can buy it. And that's a great place to go. I think people agree.
Awesome.
But Cleveland's Landscaping Solutions, that's large, renowned, landscaping on there. Then that's gonna be a lot of fun on the sodium. I know they'll have compost bins there, Cleveland's water will be there. It's just a big old thing all around.
Is that like the one that was held in COVID, that was a big parking lot, you know, getting your car and like a big loop?
That was a different format too, because of COVID, but they've gone back to just a festival format.
Right, I mean, but that event and the landscaping solutions event is the same thing.
That was the same one.
Okay, yeah, my 7-year-old, that's where she got the idea. I want to stay in the car and just look.
Yeah. And they're gonna have quick compost classes at the, so all the compost supplies and education you can stay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, John.
Eric, did you want to talk about the RV park or?
Oh, yes, I meant to mention that, just to give you an update on the RV stuff in my report. Last we talked, we had a question about where they were indicating the property line was. And so, we exhausted, I think, everything we can to try to get, the drawings that show us more about where that might be. So I think there's gonna need to be some surveying, some title work done so that we can lock down where that property line truly is and see if it's correct as they think. So I was just gonna let you know that we needed to get in touch with LJ and have them, maybe do a little bit of title research and, surveying to identify that east property line.
And how would you, just doesn't have any of that information?
We've tried and tried.
They allege that it's a text dot pitch that they just buy. The pitch was already existing. They just don't have any plans to support that.
So we can talk about it again if we need to, right? All right, moving on to item number 16, which is the trustee report. Eric? Sean?
The trustees approved the Williams Water Agency budget, and there was a long discussion on AC, as you heard today. It was pretty much similar. Anything else on this?
Most of the meeting was on the pipe, and the budget was pretty straightforward. Yeah, most of it was on the pipe.
Item number 17, recess to closed session. Not necessary. 18, taken care of. Discussion, item number 19, discussion on any matters for placement on future agendas.
I have a question. I think it was a couple of months ago, Brian, you mentioned that the rates were changing. I guess like there was some session in Austin where it said like mud directors. I guess like the rate changes or something like that. Is that something we vote on, or is that something we have to bring up to vote on, or?
That's everything covered in last month, I believe, so we have a policy amendment. So we changed, the fee is to match the statutory language, which is what the Texas Ethics Commission says for legislators. So currently that's at $211, and that should not be reflected on this.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that a couple of meetings back. It was 2 consecutive meetings. We discussed it once and then I think voted on another meeting or something that they were doing. So you got a raise.
Okay.
All right, anything else for future agenda items? Anything under discussion? All right, with that, it is 12:39 and we are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Kevin, okay to have? Kevin will be moving. Kevin is moving back to Pennsylvania. Not yet sold his house. But he's still a property owner here on that 39. But he will be moving back to Pennsylvania. To be near family, when they go back to grandparents. So. Sad loss for the community. No, I don't remember where. You know, so
How do you backfill something like that?
Well, I think we're gonna talk about that next month.
It's nice to have another number factor.
Yeah. Have you looked for one, Sean?
Okay.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Oh, well, yeah, I got the minutes, but I have a question. I think you're excited. Let me make sure I saw it somewhere.
Going back to your recycling.
And then I'll do it after you, but I have a question about the other thing. All right, I guess. Question to you. Yes, sir.
What is